2 of 10 reasons why you should read to your children. In front of me I have all kind of colorful books for kids. I've got a handful back here. And our children were raised on books. There were hundreds and hundreds of books in our house. And if you look back in history, even probably some of the greatest thinkers and great philosophers of the day read and read and read. But I'm talking today about me reading to them and you reading to your child. It is so important to read to your children. And last time, in the first presentation, we talked about 5 reasons it's good to read to your children. This time, I want to give you 5 more reasons, so there'll be 10 altogether. And number 6, another reason that you should read to your children is that you will expand your child's vocabulary. I will guarantee you, in this book here, which is about an inch thick, it's probably geared for 3rd, 4th, 5th grader. If you read this book out loud to them, they will hear vocabulary words that they will not hear anywhere else. Anyway, you ought to read this book just to help, and read other books to your children, even when they're 2 and 3 and 4 years old, to expand their vocabulary. It is so important to do that, and when they get into grade school, they'll be much more able to catch on to concepts that the teacher presents than the child next to them who has never been read to. And then number 2, you can teach your child different things like colors and shapes and animals, different objects like trucks, tractors, buildings, and so forth as you point to them in the books. When our children were little, they would sit in my lap. I would open up the pages of books and they would see all the different colors. They would see the shapes, like in this page here, there's a mailbox, there's a red flag on it, and I do see the flags on the wrong side. It should be on the other side, but that's all right. I see a calico cat. I see some greenery in the background, some evergreen. There's snow, there's a bird, there's a dog with a stick. So I would take their hand and point to each item and talk about it. Even the mittens and the muffler and the cap and the girl. Anyway, so they hear, you can teach them all kind of things like color, shape, and things I mentioned earlier. You can also, number 3, teach them critical thinking skills. Read to your child Sherlock Holmes or some mystery book like Nancy Drew or the Sugar Creek Gang, where there's mysteries and there's children involved. You can teach them to evaluate the who, what, where, when, and how of a situation. You're building in them critical thinking skills to get them to think later when they're in grade school and high school and middle school. And then number 4, your child also learns how to correctly pronounce words because they heard you pronounce them correctly. They just don't listen from a child down the street. They listen to you pronounce those words. So you know what? They are 1 and 2 and 3 steps ahead already in school of the average child who has never been read to, because they have heard those words pronounced correctly. And then number 5, your child learns to do something else. And I meet so many people that when I talk to them about reading, they say, "Oh, I don't read. Oh, I don't like books. Oh, I don't like to read at all." Well, that tells me that their minds are closed to a whole new avenue of culture and people and countries. So your child learns to love books. It opens their imagination to places around the world, to historical adventures and other adventures, to the mysteries of life, and especially as you read the best book of all, God's Word to them. When our children grew up, I believe I read at least 90% of this book out loud to them. There were selected portions I did not read, like Hosea and Song of Solomon, because my children were very little. Anyway, but most of the Old Testament, all of the New Testament out loud to them. And you know what? I'm glad I spent those years and time in developing my children. My son is a nurse practitioner. He has gone through all the rigors of education to become a nurse practitioner. Both of my daughters have been to college and are executive assistants at the place where they're employed. So I'm really proud of my children. But again, a lot of it is because they grew up in a family that loved books. Thank you for joining me. Go to part 1. There's 5 reasons you should read to your child. This is another part 2 of 5 reasons. So that's going to be 10 reasons altogether. Share these videos. Share them around, and thank you for joining me today.